Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon. This is Scale Your Sales podcast. Welcome to the Scale Your Sales podcast, listed number 9 of 42 best podcasts for every sales professional in 2021. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, recommended by LinkedIn as one of 15 innovative sales influencers to follow in 2021. In this episode of Scale Your Sales podcast, my guest talks about 80% of sales success is deal management and 20% is sales methodology. He provides solutions to help streamline the closing phase of the sales process. We also talked about the sales process and how it's become less relevant, and the focus, he agrees with me, is more on the buying process, the go-to-market strategies that teams use, but focusing on how your buyers want to buy, and the whole project management, relationship building process that you need behind that. All of this will avoid revenue slippage. You're going to love this interview. My next guest is CEO of Joint Flows, a former professional gymnast with 10 years developing his career from marketing specialist to BD, AE, sales director, VP of sales, and now CEO. Welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast, Mike Bossett.
Hi, Janice.
It's really good to talk to you. I've been doing some research on you, and so I know you've got some incredible. Let's kind of go back and talk about one of the things that I thought was really incredible that I heard you say was that 80% of success is deal management and 20% is sales methodology. And I thought that was, wow, that's something I really need to talk to you about. So can you explain that further from your experience and what you see in the field? It will be for our listeners to hear this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the the idea behind this is that you've got two exercises essentially within the forecasting world. The first one is managing the deals over the line and dealing with the moving parts, dealing with the milestone, dealing with the stakeholders, the documents, to review the teams to align. And the second part of forecasting is essentially your sales methodology. So you've got a whole set of methodologies you can choose from, value selling, winning by design, MEDDIC, MEDPIC. If you zoom out and you look at how much each of these concept aspects of forecasting is impacting your ability to actually be accurate at it and predictable, you'll see that the chunk, the share line of the work is about managing the deals over the line as opposed to sticking to a sales methodology. The reason for that is if you don't have a sales methodology, you can still enable the sale. You can still get a contract signed. And to bring a little bit of examples to the statement, very often you're going to have a sales team of people who have been promoted internally and have been part of the setup of that, the incumbent sales methodology. And you would have people who have been hired from other companies, and they come in with a knowledge of a different sales methodology. So sometimes you've got sales teams with several sales methodologies doing well. So obviously it's not about the sales methodology. It's about your ability to project manage complex deals or a lot of moving parts over the line, which enable you to then forecast accurately. And a lot of the focus when you do deal reviews, or even deal analysis is about who you speak to, how many stakeholders are involved on the sales process, and whether you're completing specific milestones in logical order.
So do you think that this has developed in the last, well, post-pandemic or in the last 5 years? Why do you think that the focus really is in the management of the deal and all the moving parts and stakeholders? Why has that come about, that there's less of a focus on the sales methodology and the actual process that you've created to take your buyers through?
Threefold. The first one is most of the sales process, the buying process, has already happened when you get in contact with your potential buyer. So there's a lot of the buying happening outside of your control. The second is only 5% of the sales process is done between the buyer and the seller. So 95% of the activities are done outside of what you've got control over. And the third aspect is over the last 2-3 years, the progress has become increasingly harder. So you've got way more stakeholders now involved in the decision process and the signature process of a new piece of software, if we speak about software sales. And it's moved from 12 to now being around 30 people mark. And it's obviously becoming more and more about project management, because the buyers you're speaking to already have a fairly good understanding about what you're doing, and your sales process is no longer relevant. This is a little bit controversial, but it's very much about the buying process now. And deal management is about plugging your milestones into a buying process to make that process as smooth and as quick as possible. A lot of the time where I see sales team go wrong is when they're essentially being dismissive of the fact that the buyer is already knowledgeable about your offering, and you think you have to start the conversation from scratch. I'm not saying skip the discovery call, skip the demo, skip the business case, but you have to pick up your buyer from where that stands in terms of their understanding of your product, and then enable essentially that last 2 miles of the buying process.
I absolutely love what you have to say. For a long time, I'm often talking about the sales process is irrelevant. And if you think about, we've been living with, 7-step sales process for the last 50 years. There's a lot that's happened and changed that. And one of my views is that the sales stack has got so big and so cumbersome that has just created more complication for the buyer. We're forgetting the whole point is it's supposed to be making it easy and simple for the buyer. That, we have this process and the stack is plugging the holes because it's an inefficient process that's not really relevant. And I love what you say, that it is all about the buying process. That should be where the focus is. That's what we should be talking about. So yeah, explain more about the buying process and plugging some of the holes that you mentioned.
Yeah, so I guess this is where the biggest difficulty is when you're in an innovative space like ourselves. The buying process might not be structured yet. You might be the first vendor to actually create that process, and that's when usually the friction happens, because the default is to essentially push for your sales process to happen, but the buyer is onto something, and they need to stick to a direction, and that's a requirement for them. So if you look at how it works, the best salespeople will spend a lot of time mapping this out, understanding previous experiences, understanding whether there's similarity within the current tech stack with what you're selling, and then essentially creating little buckets of actions, milestones to achieve that are similar enough to what you guys, to what your team needs to achieve as well. And then it's about identifying what's missing and providing guidance to the buyer on the best way to move forward based on your experience. The buyers, I think, are still expecting you to guide the buying process or the sales process to a certain extent, but it has to be aligned with what they need to achieve internally in order to de-risk the decision process and make sure that diligence is done so that the rollout of your technology is efficient and the return on investment is quick.
I think it's quite interesting with what you say, because it's almost like it's a change of mindset as well. It's rather than we've got all the answers, when we have the process, so you're following our lead, as opposed to it's more a co-creation, negotiation, consultancy mindset. In that I don't have all the answers, but I can actually help you along the journey to actually get to where you want to be anyway. I have a certain amount of experience that I can bring to the table, de-risk the deal and information and so forth. But they've got to bring something to the table as well. They're not expecting you to hand it on the plate. They want to be involved in the process. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. And I think the word process is wrong. A process by definition is a set of tasks which happen in a specific order. And it means having that. It's very binary, right? So it's either you're within the process or you're outside of the process, and it's no longer how it works, because as I said, like, the people you're selling into, the companies you're selling, are aware and have done a lot of the pre-work for you to be there to start with. So your process is irrelevant. You have to understand where they stand, and you have to then put a plan together to bridge that gap. What I think is a little bit complicated with the current tech stack and what is mainstream, if you speak about, the CRM tools, for instance, is you don't have a data set which is built around this approach. So you have essentially two attributes within your CRM system. You've got your forecast category, so best case, pipeline, upside, commit, and then you've got a set of stages, which are usually a one-way system. So you move from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 to stage 4. But it's no longer about the process, as we said. It's really about stakeholder management and milestone management, task management. If you're in a sales process mindset, then no one will ever fit strictly within your sales process, and therefore you always have a lot of surprises, because it's never fit for purpose, because things are changing, stakeholder information is available. If you look at it from a deal management viewpoint, stakeholder, document, task, milestone management, then it really doesn't matter when things are happening or in which order things are happening. If you look at it as a jigsaw, as a puzzle, as long as you've got all the pieces and as long as they all break together, you will finish the puzzle and you will complete the deal. But and there's many ways to actually do that puzzle. There's not just one way. You've got thousands of combinations of ways to actually break those pieces together. The sales process doesn't allow you to. The sales process is very rigid, and because it's very rigid, it's very against what the buyer is currently experiencing or is needing to progress the opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. So tell me more about Joint Flow, how it orchestrates and automates complex sales process.
Yeah, so if you look at how deals are managed at the moment, you see that a lot of the complexity happens during the second half of the sales process, right? Just to make it accessible for everyone. The second half of the relationship, that buying relationship, and is very activity heavy, is very project management heavy. It's about speaking to as many people as you can that are relevant for the purchase, understanding their needs, understanding their pains, mapping this out against a solution, and then doing the due diligence. And effectively, salespeople who are doing fairly sophisticated deals don't have a system which enables them to project manage those moving parts. You've got CRM systems, you've got sales engagement tools, you've got signature system, but managing the complexity, prioritization, aligning stakeholders internally and externally happens manually. And because it happens manually, it's prone to errors. And because it's prone to errors, a lot of collateral side effects happen. So forecasting is difficult. Being accurate at it is virtually impossible. Avoiding friction, impossible as well. Avoiding discounting, this has become a very standard tactic, unfortunately, to bring the deals over the line, and this damages the business quite badly. And Joint Flows essentially enables you to map out those individual workflows, and very often they follow the same structure. So one of the problems that we tackle is nothing is documented. The top of the funnel things are documented. So prospecting, getting to a discovery call, everything is quite structured. But everything past that point is very manual. So we document those processes, we create templates essentially based on specific milestones, which incorporate the internal workflows. And then you activate Joint Flows to essentially bring that puzzle together based on what the client needs. It might be that they need to go through a questionnaire. It might be that they need to do an executive alignment. But for you, it's just a simple click that brings the workflow in, and then everything is automated, everything is orchestrated. And what's really important with Joint Flows is we open up a new data set which complements what is currently in the market, whether provided by the forecasting tool or the CRM tools, about operational efficiency, about your ability to accelerate, maintain, and improve the existing workflows to identify bottlenecks. It's very much of a project management tool before salespeople doing sophisticated, which is missing at the moment.
So where does it sit? Does it sit on the side of the CRM system? How does that information, or is it quite separate? We use Joint Flow, and we don't have a need for the other platforms. How does it all work within the sales operation?
So we sit on top of Salesforce,
okay,
alongside the sales engagement and the forecasting tools. We were born on the closing phase of the sales process, essentially optimizing, orchestrating those reviews, the stakeholder alignment, the team alignment. And there's more and more of a need from our clients to actually help them with essentially anything post-discovery call and anything post-signature as well. So client handover, implementation are extremely project heavy. So you have to be a good project manager now in sales in order to be efficient. And your sales process is no longer relevant. It's really your ability to identify, okay, what are the milestones that needs to be achieved? Who needs to sign this off? And then how do we get this over the line as quickly as possible with as little friction as possible? Joint Flows does that automatically.
Right. Fantastic. That's really interesting. Okay, let's talk a bit about the experience of buyers and customers and how that impacts sales. I know that you've talked about how important it is to have to develop relationships with the customers and manage the deals. But let's talk about how that impacts sales. What's your view?
It's at the end of the day, you're selling to people, and the people you're selling have to trust you, and not only they have to trust you, but they have to trust and materialize your ability to solve their problem. So if you don't have a good relationship with your buyers or your buying committee or your buyers managers, then you don't have a deal. You don't even have a relationship to start with. What's really difficult is being able to understand what this person is trying to avoid as a negative consequence of the inaction. So the jolt effect, is all over SolidWorks at the moment, but it's very true that if you're not on a good relationship at personal level with your buyers, then the risk of action is almost greater than the risk of inaction, and the fear of messing up is very much here. So you have to de-risk. It's about de-risking. It's about de-risking the decision, and it's about de-risking the adoption at the end of the day. And if you want to do that, you have to be on a level of relationship with the people you're selling to, which is open, and which is very very see-through.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So tell me about the turnaround of internal tasks, how that can be increased by ensuring that the processes are more automated. Because I'm trying to work out if processes can be more automated, how the project management system and the templates that you have, and every situation is uniquely different. So how do you map all of that to make sure that the sales cycle is faster?
I think they're uniquely different if you're not close enough to the moving parts. If you zoom out, then yeah, each situation is very different. If you start breaking down what's happening within each situation, you actually have a set of similarities ordered in a different way with different stakeholders. So as soon as you have this in mind, and as soon as you see your deals with this angle, and all the deals are the same, they're virtually all the same, ordered in a different way, with different job titles involved. But the systems you have in place at the moment don't allow you to see that. They just don't allow. It's too opaque. It's too structured. It's too rigid. If you zoom out, if you zoom in, and if you start looking at, actually, this milestone is the exact same milestone as I did on deal X, and that milestone is the exact same milestone as I did on deal Y, and I've got 100 clients or tens of clients, you've probably gone through the whole set of things that need to happen in the most complex deal, if you had to bring all the milestones together. So it's really just about orchestrating them and bringing them in a logical way. And that's what we do internally. We never speak about deals as a stage in Salesforce or in our CRM platform or a forecast category. We speak about the number of milestones we achieve, the number of stakeholders we've got relationship with, and how good are we at understanding what solution we bring to them specifically based on their KPIs. So there's a lot of gap selling, and then this is mapped out to very, very specific deliverables, and then we just tick the boxes. We just check the list basically as fast as we can. We've got the ability to do that because we use a different data set.
Right. Yeah. I'm really interested about your role over the last 10 years. You've evolved from like marketing specialist and now CEO. So the last role, VP of Sales, Director of Sales, now stepping into the CEO role. How's your world changed for you? What's uniquely different where your focus is?
I think that something funny happened over the last six months, really. I was for the first time on the buying side, so myself buying technology, and I was exposed to other company sales processes as a buyer. And really, there's that saying, sales is broken. I think it's broken, but I think we broke it. And we have to take responsibility for fixing it, basically. And we broke it because we've not evolved with at the same pace as the level of information which is accessible for buyers. We're still very much in an old school traditional sales process, which has to be ticked for your own benefits, right? There's no benefits for the buyer, really, on forecasting. If you look at what the value is for the buyers to be asked all of these questions, nothing. It's for you to fill out your CRM so that you've got peace of mind on what you're going to commit to the board. And I think this is wrong. I think you have to look at it as extreme buyer centricity and information convenience. And if you do that, then your mindset will shift and you will not force your methodology onto the prospect. You will not force your sales process onto the prospect. You will understand where they are, and you will just do that last mile. And that's what is driving us from a corporate point to actually keep on building joint flows and spreading the word, because it's much simpler. Forecasting becomes extremely easy because you are literally managing tasks, and the only level of complexity is really about mapping it out. But it's simpler for the buyer, so they actually play the game way more than if they have to go through your sales process so that you can then report internally on what's happening.
So it sounds like that's a real campaign of yours.
Yeah.
Easier for salespeople to do their job, but we've got the platform for it.
If it's difficult, if it's difficult for you to sell, it's probably very, very difficult for your buyers to buy, right?
Well, that's the Gartner research, isn't it? How much more difficult it is for buyers to buy. And there's got to be an answer for this. Yeah.
So stop thinking about your needs and start focusing on what the buyer needs, and you'll see often is much more simple than it seems.
Yeah. Okay, so my last question is, if you're on a desert island your own, what's the one thing you take with you?
Probably a satellite phone, just to call someone to come and pick me up, or a lighter, or something that helps me survive.
So you don't want to be on your own then, Mike? Is on a desert island, bit of a respite? No,
no. I don't do too well on my own. I like to be surrounded with people.
All right, you've got your satellite phone. We're taking you off the desert island. There's a lot of people that would love that would find it quite ideal, but not you, Mike.
No, I'll miss my wife and my kids, I think.
All right, okay. Well, we'll give you that. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. I was really keen to talk to you because I think that there's lots of areas where we align on scale yourselves in terms of really focusing on the buyer, but I really love that you've got an answer to this, a practical answer to this. So thank you so much for sharing your experience and knowledge. Thank you for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast, Mike.
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the captioned show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.